Hey guys, what's up? I'm Noah, this is Analog Resurgence, and today I'm taking a look at Fomapan Creative 200 black and white negative film. For the roll reviews, I do try my best to kind of, tackle things that aren't just like Kodak and Fuji, because there is a big variety of stuff. So today I'm taking a look at a film by the company Fomapan. Fomapan makes several black and white films, and right now I'm just taking a look at their Creative 200, which is a 200 ISO black and white film. Fomapan, like Ilford, is also a company that has been producing black and white materials for years. Between film, chemicals, and paper, they are a noteworthy black and white supplier for the film photography world. They originated in the early 1920s in the Czech Republic, which is where the company is based. Fomapan's black and white films, which I will get to eventually on the channel, include Classic 100, Creative 200, and Action 400, as well as offering a black and white reversal film, which is R100. And that is a black and white film that is actually a black and white slide film. So once you put it through the proper chemical process, it will come out as a positive, which is something that you can project and look at. It's a different kind of film, but Fomapan makes it. And they also make it in 8mm motion picture film, not Super 8, but rolls of 8mm R100, which is a 100 ISO black and white reversal film. For a long time, R100 was one of the only, or at least easiest to get your hands on film stocks for 8mm. And now the Film Photography Project also offers a variety of different other options for shooting 8mm, including Ektachrome and a color negative one. But Fomapan makes a variety of black and white stuff, and they're worth considering if maybe there is Fomapan film sitting on the shelf in your camera store and you're always going for the more popular stuff. Because their 100, 200, and 400 ISO films are decent films that can, kind of serve really good results if you're just looking for a go-to standard kind of everyday film to shoot. 200 ISO is also not a super common ISO. There is stuff out there, things like Kodak Gold 200, but normally things are 100 ISO or 400. So there are slightly less options for 200, and this stuff offers something kind of in the middle of things. I took this stuff out and shot it on a pretty overcast, kind of rainy day, so not necessarily supremely ideal shooting conditions, but it performed pretty well. And let's take a look at some of the shots and compare it to some of the more maybe well-known black and white film stocks that are out there. I developed this stuff at home myself. I just use Kodak HC110 as I always do for the black and white stuff. And all this stuff, the scans for it, will be available, like always, over on the Patreon as well if you're interested in supporting the channel. Fomapan Creative is a pretty straightforward looking black and white film for me. And my results had a bit of a punchy grain, which I am not a huge fan of, but it's also something that kind of gives it a classic look to it as well. It does also have a really solid contrast to it that gives my shot some character here too. I'd say it can definitely kind of fit in line with people who are maybe looking for kind of a gritty street photography film or something along the lines of that. If we stack it up against the more common and higher ISO Tri-X, we can see that Creative 200 is even more dramatic in some of my examples. Tri-X is also a higher quality, more professional film from Kodak, and it does have a tighter grain to it. And Creative 200, of course, falls a little short if you're comparing it exclusively to stuff like that. It does remind me a bit of something like Lomography's Berlin 400 film, which is a cinema film made by Orwo. I did have some similar contrast between the two, but Fomapan gives me a tighter grain than the Berlin 400 stuff does. Berlin 400 was a really chunky grain. It also ranks below Japan Camera Hunter's Street Pan 400, which is even more dramatic in terms of the quality of the shots I got. JCH is kind of its own thing here, and Creative 200 is definitely on the more classic side of black and white stocks. It handled the overcast day really well, and I got a couple of shots here where we get a bit of a halo around our light sources, which is a characteristic that is pretty popular and something that a lot of people like and look for in their films. It is kind of grungy and dramatic and kind of somber for this stuff. Fomapan site also says its wide exposure latitude allows exposure in the speed range from ISO 100 to 800. So it claims to have like a good amount of flexibility in terms of the results that you can get from it if you're exposing it at different ISOs. We look at it against another cheap black and white film like Kentmere 400, which I have taken a look at long ago on the channel. Creative 200 definitely has like way more character and like contrast to it than like Kentmere 400, which is a much like lower contrast. And I do prefer the Fomapan stuff over the Kentmere stuff. But Kentmere is also like a really cheap black and white option if you're looking for something, and they make that in 100 and 400. Fomapan 200, again, is on like the cheaper end and like the consumer end of the black and white film spectrum of like shooting options out there. Of course, this doesn't apply to everybody because I know there are regions and countries and just different areas where film is just not readily available or easy to get your hands on or cheap at all. But it is a solid film, and Fomapan stuff in general isn't too bad. I wouldn't say that, you know, you should like go crazy and shell out a lot of money if it's going to cost you that to shoot this stuff, because it is not anything super special, but it is just like a quality and like reliable enough film that if it's available, if it's on hand, then by all means consider it over the more expensive options of things like Kodak and like Fuji's Acros 100. For me here in Canada, I pay $8.25 for a 36 exposure roll of this stuff in 35mm, which is a bit more than Kentmere 400, which is a cheap black and white film option as well. But also it's a good bit less than something like Kodak's Tri-X film. Also, people seem to get confused when I'm talking about Canadian film prices and like the Canadian dollar. This is a film channel, so I'm not gonna explain the difference of currency values and the exchange rate and the economy. There is a difference between the American dollar and the Canadian dollar. Now, if you can't get your hands on the Fomapan stuff for some reason, but you do have access to films like Arista EDU 100 or 200 or 400, then you're in luck, because the Arista EDU stuff is also the same. It is the Fomapan stuff just rebranded, repackaged, or whatever, and done under the name of Arista. So Arista 100, 200, and 400 is the same as Fomapan 100, 200, and 400. So they are the same film, which means that probably I will not do roll reviews specifically for the Arista stuff. So always keep an eye out for like lesser known names in the film world, because like Fomapan has been around for a long time and they have supplied film and chemicals and paper in the black and white photography world that is worth having around for even longer as well. If you have the chance to shoot some of this stuff, then I say branch out and take a look at other film stocks and different choices when you're considering what to shoot, and maybe thinking about stuff that you want to have on hand and what is worth, you know, adopting as like a go-to kind of film. Thank you guys so much for watching and checking this out. Let me know down below in the comments if you have experience with the Fomapan stuff or the Arista stuff, and just, you know, experience with this side of stuff that is not necessarily, again, like the bigger brand names of like Kodak, whatever. Also, down below information to pick up some Fomapan stuff and the Analog Resurgence Patreon, P.O. Box, and Pro 8mm out in California if you are looking for motion picture Super 8 and 16 stuff. Also, the Film Photography Project, again, as I mentioned, if you're looking for regular 8mm film stocks as well. So all those resources, information down below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon.